On May 8, 2025, the second trailer for Celine Song's sophomore film, Materialists, dropped, accompanied by a 2000s voiceover, which was enough of a sell to anyone still on the fence about it. You see, the rom-com has become a dying breed, pushed onto streaming with an expectation that this is its new home. Studios no longer care to invest in the genre with care or in a way that will project them onto the big screen. So, Celine Song, a new female director right off the success of her debut, Past Lives, partnered with Hollywood's new cool kid A24, starring Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal, in a rom-com marketing itself enamored in nostalgia? Yeah, people were pretty excited. And the box office reflected that, but did audiences like it? Not really, no, actually. Criticism spanned from those referring to it as broke boy propaganda to others feeling duped by the marketing, scratching their heads as to where the hell was the calm in rom-com anyway. While I have my own issues with it I'll get to, the public's reaction, especially amongst women, exposed a reality I don't even think some realize. For so long, our framework of romance and relationships has been filtered through the lens of film and television. If a girl didn't grow up watching Disney princesses, by 16 she could at least list a few of her favorite love stories, whether it be in a movie, book, or some fan fiction of the week. Once you're an adult, because of your own experiences, usually come to the realization Prince Charming is a fantasy, and grand gestures are less so paired with miscommunications, more so heartbreaking betrayals. Something's changed, and that something is the internet. When you have an app like TikTok that has low-key become a competitor for mainstream media, you have a generation consuming content creators setting the standards of what romance is, questioning if it's something a woman should even place priority in, and finding real-life examples of unhappy, married women to give credibility to their own praxis. In the age of incel culture and decentering men, the 90s and 2000s rom-coms people claim they yearn for would be picked apart if they came out today. How do I know? Because they already are.
A man ever says he's not doing something, he's doing that exact same thing. And the perfect example of that is when Harry met Sally.
And it's not because I'm lonely, and it's not because it's New Year's Eve. I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
That would have been so romantic if only he hadn't spent 2 years ignoring Sally as a romantic prospect, and then when he finally makes a move, it's to sleep with her, not get in a relationship with her, and then he gets upset and says she's making too much out of them sleeping together.
Baddie gives up a successful, ambitious, and stable man who respects and worships her for a manipulative, unstable loser who she tried to forget. He couldn't even let her do that in peace.
At the end, Andy, she finally gets the courage to quit her fucking job and go after what she really wants, which is a serious journalism job. She's flying across the country to Washington, all that stuff, and she's like, I'm just gonna leave all this behind and really do what I want to do, and that's serious journalism. She's going. What does this man do? He chases her down. He says, you're running away, you don't really want to go. Well, she's like, well, I don't have a job, so I literally have to go to this fucking interview. And she gives it all up for a fucking man.
Keep me away from anybody like the main character, Jane. You know, if the mid-2000s didn't give us anything else, they gave us so many movies with this, like, weird pick-me character trope that wants to be married so bad, she wants a man so bad that she usually ends up sacrificing, like, her morals and her close friend circle just to get him.
In Manhattan, the whole time, J-Lo's character is scamming this man. I don't understand how in the end they were just able to smooth that over and just become, like, a power couple.
Love and basketball is trash.
Is what?
It's garbage, basura. And let me tell you why. First of all, Q, terrible person. Whole movie, I didn't see one redeeming quality. He made her get on his bike at 8 years old. He was a kid. Just that. Yep. And then as he got older, it didn't get no better.
He's stalking his love trope. Two examples of this trope include Hitch and There's Something About Mary. Both of these films feature male characters that are just so in love with their female love interests that they hire investigators to look up everything under the sun about these women so they can trick them into falling in love with the little old nice guy with the puppy dog crush.
You're pairing very hot girls with very average looking men, and I said, wait a minute, like, how do we get here? Because first of all, I'm so sorry, respectfully, why was Billy Crystal ever a leading man in a rom-com? Like the heartthrob. Okay, respectfully. And then I was like, Kate Winslet, Jack Black.
I hate watching rom-coms because I'm always like screaming at the TV at the end. I'm like, why did you end up with him? It would have been better if you were by yourself. How about this other guy who was like able to meet you where you're at, who you actually did love and you cared about? And it just shows that, you know, women have to settle. And I don't necessarily think that's true, but obviously that's what the media wants to portray.
Now, while I find some of those takes hollow, the root of these analyses aren't bad. Art is political, and I think it's important when things in media, especially something as intimate as relationships, is framed as okay when it's problematic, discourse can only be beneficial. What we have now in our current climate and dating landscape is an inability to have these stories received the same way they were 20, 30 years ago. Survey data from the University of Michigan, conducted by Pew Research Center, found that high schoolers in the U.S. today are less likely to express interest in marriage than previous generations. Just 67% of 12th graders in 2023 said they were likely to get married one day, compared with the 80% reported 3 decades before. If one hasn't given up a desire for partnership, the exhaustion of dating apps and disappearance of third spaces can weigh even the most hopeless of romantics down. It seems audiences have become less interested in fantasy and are now seeking relatability. And I get it. The nostalgia you miss are 2 leads with actual chemistry. Cozy, warm aesthetics without that streaming glossy bullshit filter. Stories that present intimacy and desire, making one feel seen. But living in the past of the good old days stops you from exploring all the possibilities of the stories that could be told now, where discourse around first dates and red flags and boundaries and gender roles and love bombing are abundant. There are 3 films I saw this year written and directed by women I found to be cooking something new in the kitchen and actually engaging with the present. Materialists, Oh Hi, and I Love You Forever. Now, one of them didn't work, but I applaud all for capturing the time and attempting to mirror back these ongoing conversations in stories examining our current reality. But first, let's talk about the one that failed. Materialist follows Lucy, a 30-something matchmaker living in New York City who only sees 2 paths for her love life: die alone or marry rich. While at a former client's wedding, she meets Harry, a wealthy man so perfect he gets the title of why some women refuse to settle, the unicorn. He takes a liking to her around the same time she runs into her ex, John, a broke theater actor cater waiter who is the only reason she knows she's capable of love. One flashback shows them arguing about money, resulting in their breakup. Lucy's job acts as a subplot where we get montages of meetings with her uncompromising clients. The women worried about height, the men focused on age, and their ridiculous expectations offer the few comedic beats we get. But there's one client Lucy takes a liking to, Sophie, 39 and described as average in every possible way, whose checklist seems malleable enough as someone just looking for a decent guy. The climax occurring when Lucy finds out she's been assaulted by a man she set her up with, causing our lead to spiral into a bit of a crisis, feeling responsible. She breaks up with Harry because, simply put, they're not in love, and ends up seeing the errors of her thought process. True love is priceless, and she'd rather take a gamble on that than choose a loveless marriage of financial stability.
Before we start,
I want to say I am a fan of Celine Song, a talented writer and director who gave us, in my opinion, one of the most romantic films of the decade. We don't often get to see female leads like Nora, who are ambitious and blunt and sensible, and these traits are not framed as the conflict she must overcome. It's a story about closure that also has us passively watching 2 men in the background adore her for exactly who she is. A woman who's not going to miss rehearsal for some guy. Which is why Materialists stung so bad. Giving credit where it's due, there are things that work. It shines when pulling out of focus to present a larger conversation about how our current dating landscape exploits people's own self-loathing. Lucy hates herself for being judgmental and cold and materialistic. Name drop. It's as if the moment she broke up with John, she placed her heart in a freezer to be locked away forever. She's at peace with the idea of dying alone because she feels it would be deserved for leaving her poor soulmate who can't give her the lifestyle she wants. She berates herself in front of Harry, not for sympathy, but due to a hyper-awareness of the marriage marketplace. According to her, she's not up to par for a man like Harry, more of a match for a man like John, matching her freak by hating himself just as much, considering he's a 37-year-old cater waiter still chasing pipe dreams of becoming a theater actor, living with 2 roommates, one of whom is the type to leave a used condom on the floor in the kitchen. Saying it's bad would be an understatement. Lucy's meetings with her entitled clients are mostly played for laughs, but a subtext I don't even think Song considered was an acknowledgement the film makes. Dating takes a lot of effort, a lot of trial and error, a ton of risk and pain. As ridiculous as many of the asks are, in real life, those tend to come from people who have been beaten down by those risks, those errors, their past choices, the exhaustion that comes with trying, but still looking up to see you haven't moved out of quicksand. Song is being critical of those who view relationships transactionally. And I'm not saying she's wrong, but that mentality doesn't come out of nowhere, particularly for women. A character like Sophie representing someone just looking for a connection to grow, who's become Lucy's biggest challenge for being too average. When you dip your toe into the marketplace, it's telling you everything you're not and what you should be at the very least grateful for. That external noise is loud, and despite younger women sometimes finding it annoying in older rom-coms, it's one of the things they got right. The way older single women were treated isn't all that exaggerated, especially in the 90s and 2000s. The triangle, if you can call it that, does a good job at capturing what it's like to date someone you feel is out of your league. The anxiety and self-doubt hovering over, asking what can you really offer, mixed with this beacon of affirmation, because a unicorn has found their way to you. Even if the love isn't there, all that time you spent single, hyper aware of the way others treated you, for some, it's enough. It's what makes that scene with Lucy and the bride one of the best in the film.
In the darkest, ugliest part of yourself, want to marry Peter. And I promise you, I have heard every reason why a person wants to get married to someone. And none of them are shocking or wrong or crazy to me.
Makes my sister jealous. She's never said that, but I know it's true. She thinks he's better than her husband. She thinks he's got a better job, that he's better looking, taller. And, that makes me feel like I've won.
So this is about value. Peter makes you feel valuable.
Yeah, he does.
It's a cynical but honest look of the things people tell themselves to rationalize marrying someone they're not in love with. Marriage is hard work. Love can grow. I'm paraphrasing, but remember hearing Shan Boudram say once how weddings are one of the only celebrations where people gather in hope of the accomplishment. The marriage hasn't started, it's the beginning. And when you break down the numbers, is it all even worth it? Even if you have a 50-50 shot, is the settling choosing love or security? And while both are possible, who gets access to that reality? Tall, short, skinny, thick, fat, rich, poor, Asian, black, white, kids, no kids, education, straight, gay, bi, city, country. Everyone has a mental checklist with deal breakers that have become the topic of the week at least twice a month on social media. Because of our ability to cast a wider net than previous generations, our paradox of choice and public declaration of standards is so prevalent. To have rom-coms released now without even a hint of acknowledging it seems weird. In 10 seconds, I'll be ripping Materialists to shreds, but mad respect to Celine for being one of the women this year actually ushering in romances that engage with our now. In terms of story, let's talk about what didn't work, which was everything else. On our right hand, we're in 2025, unapologetically acknowledging the pervasive cynicism of the landscape in a way that's met with some understanding. On the left are 3 leads not at all fleshed out enough to emotionally invest in. let alone root for. We're told Lucy is materialistic, but we never get to see it. The inside of her home, for the most part, remains a mystery, along with how she's able to afford some of the designer items she's wearing, living on an $80K salary before taxes, in New York City of all places, and smoking is a pretty expensive habit. The one flashback we get even contradicts this gold-digging persona the story wants us to see her in so badly. While on their way to a nice restaurant, her and John are arguing in traffic. They may get charged a late fee if they don't find a parking spot soon. He's refusing to pay $20 for it, and Lucy, feeling like her parents who constantly fought about money, breaks up with him for being broke. Which sounds bad, if you're not paying attention to everything she says before jumping out. We agreed we'd go to nice restaurants on our anniversary. I'll pay for it. We're broke. The story as is only works if Lucy actually seems unreasonable. But these lines show me a woman who is already willing to compromise. Perhaps there was an expectation earlier in the relationship to frequently dine at fancy spots, but wanting to invest in something special once a year is just a hard sell to get me to believe John that she's so hard to please. Offering to pay and him saying no is nothing more than his ego at work, especially considering he starts to berate her for picking the place to begin with. When she jumps out of the car, she's not only indicting him for being broke, she says we, lumping her own financial status into her dissatisfaction with the relationship. He's blaming her for wanting too much while she's blaming herself. He even holds a lack of respect for her job, but that's unsurprising knowing how he talks about his own work. John has been frozen in time since they broke up, refusing to take commercial gigs or become a manager as it could steal time from, again, his dreams of theater acting. And I could get on board if he was happy, content, self-assured in these choices, but he's not. He's embarrassed by them. Look, I'm a lover girl, a covert one, because I'm an Aquarius and we're contradictory in nature. Don't think about it too hard. But the point is, broke boy propaganda can absolutely work on me when done well. Signing up to watch a romance, I'm open and want to be convinced. But when the broke boy is self-loathing, judgmental, and not even content with the way he's chosen to live his life, like Lucy, I'm gonna have to pass. Unlike her, I don't feel bad about myself for it. I haven't even went over the essay subplot ushered in to further her arc, once again causing her to feel like a bad person and ultimately choose love in the end. She doesn't even begin second-guessing her lack of emotional connection to Harry until she finds out what happened to Sophie. In an interview, Song said, 1 in 3 women experience sexual assault in their life. So the idea that you have a story that is intended to really talk about love and dating, the way it feels in 2025, and to not include a story where there can be a violation trust, violation of everything, a crime, it wouldn't have felt honest. And I love that. This whole video is celebrating the female directors this year who actually attempted to engage with real-world dating experiences women face today. The safety risks that come from dating a man have always been there. The internet has just given us a space on a grand scale to have these conversations without shame. Keep your location on, don't let him pick you up from your house, make sure a friend or family member knows your plans, have an exit strategy. Dating is a risk many women these days are conscious of, and I appreciate Song for wanting to be honest about that in a genre that never addresses it. The issue is Materialist doesn't either. It's dropped in to help Lucy, and the fact we learned Sophie is still using the same matchmaking service in the end is laughable, and not in the good way. Being assaulted or harassed is unfortunately a common occurrence in a woman's life, and sure, experiencing something like that doesn't mean you'll never take the risk of trusting and being vulnerable again. But so soon? And really, the exact same service? So many rooms the film is tapping on, but there's a lack of focus in meaningfully engaging with any of them. The best we get are cracked doors. The commentary on class is hollow. Desirability politics non-existent. When Lucy sits across from Harry, being self-critical of how she's not young enough and will look like her mother in 10 years, it's as if her being thin and white and conventionally attractive under European beauty standards is invisible. The only time the film engages with the politics of pretty is through the perspective of men. Short kings have an uphill battle, but it's not an impossible war. A man below the line of conventional physical attraction can still get in the door with other appealing attributes. A woman? Yeah, not so much. Is the goal authenticity or fantasy? It's compiling all these fruitful discussions to appear subversive in the genre, but rushes to give us an ending we're already used to in these stories. If you ask me what's going to happen to Lucy and John, it's 50-50, unless either of them reaches a different tier in their class. If Lucy takes the promotion or John catches a slightly bigger break, their chances of staying together would drop further. Maybe a miracle will still happen, where they are so moved by their love and so in love that they're going to be able to move through it, which is the other 50% of those marriages that survive. But is it? Is love the root cause of a marriage lasting? Is it impossible for a couple to stay together simply for convenience? Assets? We know the answer, and it's not what song is selling in that quote. She believes she gave us an ambiguous ending, but she didn't. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind has an ambiguous ending. The Graduate has an ambiguous ending. A story closing on our two leads getting married is not ambiguous. There's no uncertain look, no longing shot of hesitation. I mean, the final song is literally about a partner who has nothing to offer but their love. If Materialist has an open ending, every romance without a sequel does. We all can speculate if they stayed together, but a film unironically presenting a happy ending is just that. And I struggle with Lucy and John's because ultimately it's unearned. A conversation with a woman who recently experienced essay crying about the idea of dying alone is the magic spell that breaks Lucy's apprehension from literally hours before. And the only reason I'm not offended by it is the brilliance of Past Lives, where I watched a woman unapologetically embrace the life she wanted and have two men enamored by her for it. Some interpret Nora as not really loving Arthur and settling, but with him she doesn't have to perform. She can be herself while living the life she desires because they align. She used her heart and her head and is so honest with him because she knows she can be. On the flip side, Lucy is made to feel like a bad person by herself, society, and her alleged soulmate. The reason the monologue at the end of When Harry Met Sally works is because Harry doesn't love Sally in spite of her quote-unquote flaws and quirks. The flaws and quirks are what make her up. If it takes her an hour and a half to order a sandwich, he'll wait because it means he'll get to spend more time with her. When John looks at Lucy, he sees wrinkles, gray hair, and children, but hello, there's an elephant in the room being ignored. He does think Lucy is superficial. It's not a part of her, it's something he's willing to tolerate. And in the end, she is the one who assimilates. In The Notebook, Noah is poor, but he also builds her fucking dream house out of memory. Arthur is learning Korean to understand Nora in her sleep. Romance is not dead, but my God, Materialist sure makes a case for it, which is frustrating when I watch all the great scenes buried in it. I will say the gowns are beautiful. The cinematography and score pull their weight in making the argument to choose love. Doesn't work, but A for effort. Another sophomore debut, written and directed by Sophie Brooks, is Oh Hi. It follows Iris and Isaac, who 4 months into dating, are taking their first trip at a rented farmhouse in High Falls, New York. Everything seems to be going well, until Iris mentions them being a couple, to which Isaac responds, yeah, no. He's actually not looking to be in a relationship right now, leaving her perplexed, but lucky considering this conversation is taking place with him handcuffed to a bed. The rest of the film takes us down Iris's shenanigans, trying to convince him they're great together, while also trying to wiggle her way out of the crime she's committing. It's a rom-com about situationships, which, contrary to popular belief, isn't something that just spawned out of COVID.
Are you on a date?
Sort of.
I thought you said you had a business thing tonight.
I said a dinner thing.
Well, she's stunning. And I should know because, frankly, she stunned me. Well, enjoy your dinner.
Are you okay?
Oh, sure. I was just, I just didn't realize you were dating other women.
Well, not a lot of other women.
Oh,
Why don't we talk about this Saturday?
Sure. So, then enjoy your dinner. Oh, already said that. Well, do it twice.
All right, here we go.
I can't believe it. He's seen other women.
We've moved past boy asks girl out, goes on a few dates, and stay together until someone says otherwise. An evolving society and information at our fingertips has resulted in more introspection of the type of relationship each individual desires. It's naive to assume everyone you encounter wants to be married with kids behind a white picket fence. There's a reason dating apps now have a feature for you to show your intentions. What are you actually looking for? One could argue there'd be no film if Isaac was upfront about what that was. I think a good companion piece would be 500 Days of Summer, the quintessential situationship story, but there are two elements that still divides people's reactions to it. One, it's gender swapped. The norm in pop culture is to see a woman desiring love from an emotionally unavailable man who is either deliberately or unintentionally breadcrumbing her. However, 500 Days subverts this, showing us Summer, a female character who not only expresses not wanting a boyfriend, but that she doesn't believe in marriage to begin with. Leading me to the second most important aspect. She is honest up front. Tom hears a number of times that Summer wants to keep what they're doing casual, and instead of taking this at face value, takes it as a challenge. We've seen this dance before, but oftentimes it's the woman doing the convincing, sticking around, hoping she'll be one of the lucky ones whose relationship formed out of playing it cool. It's a battle of the anxious versus avoidant. And one of my favorite creators, Tell the Bees, said it first. If avoidants have won dating, the anxiously attached have won the internet. It's the idea that people with avoidant attachment styles have taken the lead, rewriting the rules of modern day courtship, turning dating into talking, while those who are anxiously attached have taken over social media, becoming the arbiters of who is and isn't a good person. After learning Isaac and her aren't on the same page about the nature of their relationship, Iris stays up all night surfing the web for the impossible, how to change a man. In a Forbes article, Brooks discusses that kind of doom scrolling can get so out of hand so quickly, and it can be crazy making. When you're desperate and in a moment of crisis, you're reaching for answers wherever you can find them, and we have access to millions of opinions. I included this scene because I wanted to heighten her anxiety and feed into that neuroses she's having in that moment. There's always a trend, a question posed on the timeline, a viral video creating discourse around what's classified as the bare minimum or manipulative. Everything has become a self-proclaimed narrative pushed out on algorithms to those desperately in search of answers or community. The weaponization of mental health language online is concerning for a number of reasons, but it's easily explained. Everything complicated needs to be boiled down to its simplest parts in order to become digestible content, and it's easy to assign value to your mental health struggle in order to make yourself the good guy. Unfortunately, when there is a hero, there is a villain. What makes Oh Hi so special is it engages with a dynamic that has become so familiar to women, but doesn't assign insidiousness to either character. Contrary to the social zeitgeist, you're not a bad person if you don't want to be in a relationship. You're not a good person if you do. Someone that wants to keep things casual and not look for anything serious does not inherently make them an immature fool who needs to grow up. The film isn't interested in indicting Isaac for not wanting to be with her. If it's critical of anything, it's his lack of clear communication. And to be honest, both played a part in it. A month before the trip, Iris said if they were going to have unprotected sex, they shouldn't be doing that with other people. This was her way of seeking exclusivity. Afterwards, her assumption, they were only sleeping with each other. However, Isaac took this to mean if he has sex with another woman, it should be protected. It's a moment that shows how easy miscommunication can happen when you're not crystal clear on your desires or boundaries. But easier said than done, right? Because in the early stages of dating, everyone wants to present the best version of themselves. Men don't want to come off as assholes, and women don't want to come off as crazy. A boy getting a girl flowers, taking her on a nice date, hell, remembering a detail about her is seen as manipulative in the land of social media if he doesn't want a relationship. A girl doing something nice for a guy, showing interest in a passion of his, can get her labeled a desperate stage 5 cool girl if she ends up on the wrong side of TikTok. In this current modern world of dating and hooking up, where relationships can take so many forms and there are so many options and choices for labels and intentions, the romantic world is rife with possibilities of miscommunication. The likelihood of different interpretations of conversations and situations leads to newer ways and reasons that women can be called crazy and men can be called assholes. In reality, we are all just people with our own sets of baggage. Fuckboy, girl's girl, soft boy, pick me, alpha male, lover girl. Definitions for all, but their overuse has rendered them useless. Everyone's tiptoeing around how to not end up on the negative side of one of these labels, while processing their own insecurities and dreams of the type of relationship best for them, having experiences with people they're still getting to know.
Oh my fucking god, does he not like French toast? Does he like... No, he got French toast. He got French toast. He like... At that diner, he got French toast. Okay.
As a woman, I get Iris's crash out, and never for a moment did I think she'd actually do something dangerous, but Isaac doesn't know that. His fear is also totally valid. Rather than assign blame, Brooks offers a relatable story that presents an understanding and thoughtfulness to both of its characters, even pointing out how liking someone is not enough if the timing is off. Him not being ready for a relationship doesn't mean he never liked her, and keeping him chained to that bed while wrong doesn't negate that her initial reaction was reasonable, because he wasn't as transparent as he should have been. This is a rom-com about a situationship that has no villain, but there is a hero, and it's honesty. In the end, Iris and Isaac share a moment of vulnerability, honoring the short time they had together and going their separate ways, which may not be a happy ending. I mean, it's bittersweet, but in our current landscape is an authentic one. I'd argue the girls are really craving the most. I Love You Forever was written and directed by Cassie David and Eliza Kalani. It plays as a sort of anti-rom-com, where we follow our lead Mackenzie, a law school student in the trenches of F-Buddy hell, holding on with the help of her two best friends, Allie and Lucas. While out one night, she meets Finn, a news reporter who is witty, charming, and, most importantly, interested. On their first date, he rents out a restaurant for them to be alone, after she told him she didn't like dinner dates, due to being self-conscious about others watching. On their second, he gives her a gold monogram bracelet with her initials, opening up about his past and how much he really likes her. Very shortly after, buys her a ticket to Portland to come meet him, and while working, says he loves her on air. 4 months pass, shown through a montage of her Instagram stories, presenting him as the best boyfriend ever, but in real life, we see him picking irrational arguments, calling and texting constantly expecting the same in return, guilt tripping, stopping by unannounced, throwing tantrums, trauma dumping, using stuff she shared with him against her in fights. The works. The blow-up finally causing Mackenzie to leave occurs after Finn finds that her former F-Buddy texted her. After changing her number, she ran into him and failed to mention being in a relationship. Finn goes ballistic, calling her a cheater and throwing stuff around, completely drained. She leaves, and shortly after has second thoughts. To get her mind off him, visits F-Buddy, and yeah, that doesn't help either. Reminded of the good times, calls only to learn Finn has changed his number, and while watching the news sees him wearing a monogram necklace, ending his segment saying, "I love you, Jenny." The film is ultimately exploring emotional abuse, while interrogating the rom-com tropes that warp our sense of romance. Not only is Finn renting out that restaurant a sign of love bombing, but it's also a red flag that he ignored the boundary she set. Although renting it out so they could be alone indicates him listening to the why. With experiences under your belt, it can get easier to see these tricks, disguised as thoughtful and attentive. But that's why the first 20 minutes is so crucial. These characters are coded as being in their mid to late 20s, and seeing the dating experiences they're having is bleak. They give us crumbs and we cherish them as though they were caviar, is the mindset, because it's the only thing they've experienced. So a meet cute followed by a FaceTime asking for a date, unfortunately, already placed Finn above most men. The love bombing is obvious, but again, when you've only had crumbs, it's easy to rationalize and hope you're just one of the lucky ones who fall into a healthy relationship when you least expect it. The grand first gesture, taking the lead, being vulnerable with your feelings up front, i.e. overly familiar, are all idolized in the world of romances. This is the fantasy girls are socialized to embrace, simultaneously making it a playbook for narcissists. As her first adult relationship, Mackenzie is experiencing these extreme highs of affection and validation accompanied with deep lows of this energy vampire sucking out her focus on school, time with friends, and any peaceful moment of solitude. What makes this story timely is emotional abusers have always been around, but now, because of how readily available everyone is through their phones, you can see 20 missed calls from the partner of your nightmares. Their entitlement can flourish even more because access to you is akin to 24-hour surveillance. And I Love You Forever removes the rose-tinted glasses off the romanticization of these types of men, revealing the truth of how they build you up to tear you down. It's so common to hear people on social media now deem a popular romance a horror movie, which is why the progression of this story is so clever in actually playing out that way, while still maintaining levity. In an interview with Marie Claire, David said, looking back on a relationship like the one in the film, it's obviously tragic in so many ways, but it's very funny to think back that you were able to be so convinced by something so ridiculous, and how dramatic these moments were over nothing. There's humor in that when you get enough time away. And it shows. It's not necessarily making light of the seriousness of emotional abuse, but showing how pathetic these energy vampires are from someone looking far back in the rearview mirror, coming out on the other side, no longer weighed down by the psychological damage of a loser. The ending acts as an ironic slap back to reality, reminiscing the good times only to see he's already moved on to his next victim. Similar to Oh Hi, it's not a traditional happy ending, it's an honest one, actively interrogating what these romance films have done to us and warping our perception of love and what's worth fighting for. It's a rom-com reckoning of sorts, and it's not even the first time it's been explored. If anyone remembers Joseph Gordon-Levitt's directorial debut, Don John, a parallel is made to men's expectations when it comes to sex, because of adult films, and women's expectations when it comes to relationships, because of movies. While there's an indictment on how these standards can attribute to putting people into boxes, stifling authentic connections due to fantasies, I Love You Forever examines how these unhealthy romantic tropes can actually lead women to vulnerable situations with abusive men, especially soaking things up when you're younger, before you're at an age and experience level where you can recognize over-the-top situations in movies are just that, not meant to be placed on a pedestal as the type of relationship one should aspire to. We really wanted to make a rom-com for our generation, something that just felt relatable to the dating pool now. While doing both of those things, we kind of came to the realization that a rom-com can also include meeting someone who ends up being toxic. Funny enough, there's plenty where that's the case, but this is one of the few, if not only, self-aware about it, actually in on the bit. And it's honest in showing, despite how draining it was, leaving a relationship doesn't automatically make you over it, or not an immediate denial about your choice to exit. I think it can be difficult for some to have empathy for victims of just emotional abuse because they assume one should be able to get out of that if they just had more self-esteem or were less male-centered. Yet we know not to spew that rhetoric in regards to physical violence. Out of the three films highlighted, this is easily the most important, showing a glimpse into the reality of a dynamic far too many women have experienced. So, Materialists falls short engaging with the reality that in a capitalistic world, financial stability is not a shallow request. But outside of that, does accurately depict how the marketplace exploits one's own self-loathing. Oh Hi examines the baggage and attachment styles everyone's dragging around with them, offering an opportunity to remind us that people seldomly fit into these buzzword labels of the week. I Love You Forever interrogates how these unhealthy rom-com tropes have informed what is romantic to women and the men that take advantage of them. All released this year, written and directed by women, and that's telling. Audiences are chanting for the rom-coms of the early 2000s, but how? When I'm hard-pressed to find any of those films as still universally beloved, because the internet has shifted society so much from 20 years ago. The way people even met their spouses has drastically changed to almost feeling unrealistic these days when watching something older. Nostalgia is overriding a lot of people's ability to engage with the present, while simultaneously think-piecing to death the gray and complexity of characters in older film and television you claim to miss. I believe you want a resurgence of the genre, but not a mirror in the way people express this desire. Most of those films are very white, very upper class, and very straight, which was fine back then, I suppose, considering the blind spots and lack of diversity able to have a voice in these big mainstream films, which romantic comedies used to be. And that's not to say there weren't exceptions. My people long for the renaissance that were black films in the 90s to have a resurgence. Although many younger black women have thrown some away, reducing them to nothing more than struggle love stories, which I'm not even going to get into right now because this video would be a half an hour longer. The point is, this conversation transcends race. The working class deserves a space in this genre. People of color deserve not a seat but their own table. The queer community deserves to be seen and represented in stories centering love that don't always end in yearning and tragedy. I find some of the most interesting love stories to center people on the older side, who have really lived a life. None of which involves flashing back to nostalgia, reheating 2000s nachos. The freshness I'm pushing doesn't have to be rooted so much in reality it leaves you feeling down either. The 3 films I highlighted have created a unique space within the genre, but there's still room for optimism, taking familiar formulas and reimagining them. One of the more recently celebrated entries by critics and audiences would be Rain Allen Miller's directorial feature debut, Rye Lane. It follows 2 strangers both reeling from a previous breakup, spending a day together. It's been compared to Linklater's Before Sunrise trilogy, and valid. They are similar stories, but Rye Lane doesn't work because it's trying to emulate 2000s rom-coms. It works because it feels new. The formula is present. Boy meets girl, their connection helps each other grow, a blow-up fight occurs, ending with a grand gesture finale. But it's visually rich, stylistic with its wide-angle lens and distorted backgrounds. A love letter to South London as the environment is its own character. And perhaps the most important element, both leads are dark-skinned, which unfortunately is just not something we see in mainstream media. Like, ever. Don, played by David Johnson, as a character isn't your typical leading man. He's naive, awkward, passive, but emotionally intelligent and kind. Yaz, played by Vivian Oparah, gives the manic pixie dream girl trope the depth usually lacking in portrayals written by men. To be honest, how often do black girls even get to be the manic pixie dream girl? Hell, if we do see it, she has to pass the brown paper bag test. Yaz is effervescent and spontaneous, harboring insecurities underneath, scared of rejection, running from opportunities to allow others to see it. They complement one another. And how Dawn challenges Yaz to be more vulnerable, Yaz challenges Dawn to be more brave. And all achieved in these mundane moments. The low stakes of this story make it feel more real. These characters are not drenched in wealth. No one's moving across the country, inspiring a chase to the airport. A conflict doesn't need to be resolved before the inevitable wedding finale. No. Just 2 strangers realizing over the course of a day they like each other. Having a fight, going their separate ways, and getting the chance to reconnect through a mutual friend's event. It's so regular, but Miller finds a way to present the extraordinary feeling you get when you really like someone, how they can turn your whole world technicolor, and even if no longer in it, they stick. HBO's rom-com anthology series Love Life depicts this perfectly. I'm still pissed at them for canceling it. Following a different person each season from their first romance to last, creator Sam Boyd set out to show how the people we're with along the way make us into who we are when we finally end up with someone forever. A sentiment I imagine even previous generations could get on board with, but particularly timely when you consider people are waiting longer to get married. They're taking their time, experiencing more dating life. I saw Eternity recently and was pleasantly charmed by its take on the love triangle. Funny, well cast, and built on Correda's 1998 Afterlife, to examine the dichotomy of the love we dream about and the love we grow with. It had this whimsical nature that audiences seem to enjoy, and it's just another example of my theory, older people romances reign supreme. The idea of multiple loves is not a new one, but has certainly become more popular to discuss openly. There's literally a poly and BDSM joke in here, making for a contemporary story they honestly could have delved into more. An ever-changing landscape comes with new rules, new dilemmas, and while a great romance film can be timeless, with every new generation you run the risk of it feeling further and further away in relatability, if the present is being ignored to complain about how much better things used to be. Where does that leave our youth? With an aversion to risk, keeping people at arm's length, supplementing isolation with online interactions, or not at all.
I think it's not just rom-com movies, but I also think the rom-com television show. The television show that you watched that when you were 11, 12, and 13 that made you practice, like imagine and visualize dating skills.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I like that girl. I'm gonna ask her out. Oh, what if she says no? Okay, well, my favorite character on the television show did that. Everybody hates Chris. And Chris asked out the hot girl and she said no. But the other girl, she really likes him and he can't tell. So I've been watching these shows with my 13-year-old boy. Like, I don't know what it is, but I do think these 10 to 15 years where the internet started, social media started, and then we stopped. We started kind of going, rom-coms are cringy, but it was actually where we learned social dynamics. From Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan.
Yeah, talking on the phone. What dude can talk on the phone now? No, I don't think any kid can talk on the phone.
Witty banter.
I went over the problematic elements in some of the most beloved rom-coms earlier, so I'm not going to rehash, but removing that from the table, Reese has a point. Whether we like it or not, film and television shapes and informs young people's ability to learn social cues, how to ask someone out, concerning behaviors to watch out for. The standards have changed because society has become more introspective on consent and boundaries and expectations, which should be reflected in our current media. And it is. But for some reason, the romance genre seems to be the stubborn mule that wants to continue playing by old rules. And to be honest, throwing two conventionally attractive white actors together, thinking that's enough, is a huge disservice to the fact that while those films had problematic elements, the chemistry was chemistrying. I'm sorry, I didn't know how else to say that, but you know exactly what I mean. It brings me back to diversity. Rye Lane had a familiar formula, but set it in an environment with characters we never see in stories like that, pumping it with style and energy, usually fit for an action or psychological drama. Eternity was like an intro class, but it was asking philosophical questions. Along with the films highlighted earlier, it gives me hope, and all it takes is one to do that. You, Me, and Tuscany's trailer got the reaction it did for a reason. When Pillion is released next year, I'll be first in line because a rom-com about a queer couple in a dom-sub relationship?
Come sign this, baby girl.
Oh, okay.
You genuinely already did it.
All right, thank you.
You did it. Wow.
These days, they're few and far between for sure, but they're not dead. 2025 showed me women are ready to interrogate the current dating landscape and create art that provokes nuanced discussions. Every now and then, we find a film offering a fresh take on familiar tropes. What you're asking for is possible, but it's not going to come from living in the past. We have to engage with how our world looks today, which requires those behind the camera to have the foresight to give the romance genre exactly what it needs: a makeover.